Welcome to another lesson in geometry. Today we are covering section 3.8, slopes of parallel and perpendicular lines. All right, so we have some vocabulary here. Use the graph at the right for exercises 1 through 4. Write parallel or perpendicular. So remember, parallel are two lines in the same plane that never cross, and perpendicular are two lines that intersect to form right angles. So line B and A definitely intersect, and they form a right angle. So this is perpendicular. Okay. Line B is horizontal and the x-axis is also horizontal. So these are never going to cross and they're in the same plane, so they're parallel. Line A and the y-axis, those are also parallel. They're both vertical lines in the same plane, so they're never going to cross. And then the x and y-axis are perpendicular to each other. They cross at the origin, so they intersect at the origin, and they form right angles. Okay. All right, so we got a little review on converse, inverse, and contrapositive. We're given this conditional. If a polygon is a triangle, then the sum of the measures of the angles is 180. And we're asked to write the converse of that. So remember, that's flipping it around. And they've written the first half for us already. If the sum of the measures of the angles of a polygon is 180, then the polygon is a triangle. Okay. The inverse is to negate the hypothesis and the conclusion, and I've already done the negation of the hypothesis for us. If a polygon is not a triangle, then the sum of the measures of its angles is not 180 degrees. Okay, so the contrapositive is to flip it around and negate it. So if the sum of the measures of the angles of a polygon is not 180, then it is not a triangle. All right, so our vocabulary builder here, reciprocal. Reciprocal of x is just 1 over x. Remember, it's flip the numerator and the denominator of the fraction. And that's because these two things will multiply together to make 1. So the reciprocal is the number that it multiplies with to make 1. And you could just find it by flipping the numerator and the denominator. All right, let's flip it over and see what's on page 2. Okay, so let's use this vocabulary. We have verb and noun. So complete each with either the reciprocal or reciprocate. So this is the noun and this is the verb. Okay. After your friend helps you with your homework, you reciprocate. So reciprocate by helping your friend. So that means you turn around and help him. So they help you, you help them. Okay. All right. So then the noun here, the reciprocal, also flipping around. Okay. Of 2/3 is 3/2. So the reciprocal is to flip the fraction upside down. Okay. Remember, the fraction doesn't have a bottom. The bottom is really 1. Okay. All right. So key concept here: slopes of parallel lines. If two non-vertical lines are parallel, notice the non-vertical is important here because otherwise they don't have a slope. They're undefined slope. Okay. Then the slopes are equal. If the slopes of two distinct non-vertical lines are equal, then the lines are parallel. So this is the converses of each other, right? So you can go back and forth. That's what makes it a good definition. And any two vertical lines or horizontal lines are automatically parallel. So we're allowed to say that vertical lines are parallel as long as we put this in. So we don't have to look at the slopes. We just say they're automatically parallel. Okay. So circle the correct statement in each exercise. A vertical line is parallel to any other vertical line, or a vertical line is parallel to any other horizontal line. So obviously the vertical lines are parallel to each other. Okay. Any two non-vertical lines have the same slope. Okay. That's not true. There's lots of lines with different slopes that aren't vertical. And any two non-vertical lines that are parallel have the same slope. That is true. So if there are two non-vertical lines that are parallel, then they have the same slope. Okay. So how do we check for parallel lines? Well, to check for parallel lines, we'd have to know if the slopes are the same. So line 3 here, L3, goes through these 2 points. And L4 goes through these 2 points. We want to know if L3 and L4 are parallel to each other. So to determine whether lines L3 and L4 are parallel, check whether the lines have the same slope. Okay? Find the slope of each line. So the slope of L3 would be 2 minus 6 over negative 1 minus negative 13. 2 minus 6 is negative 4, and negative 1 minus negative 13 is positive 12, and negative 4/12 is reduces to negative 1/3. Okay. Now we want to find the slopes of C and D. So that's going to be 7 minus 6 over top of 6 minus 3. So that's a 1 and that's a 3. So I got 1/3 and negative 1/3. So this is going to be no. The lines are not parallel because the slopes are different. Okay, let's flip it over and look at our third page. All right, problem number 2, writing equations of parallel lines. So what is an equation of a line parallel to this one that contains that point? So what information are we really given here? Well, we're given a point. So it's for our new line. We know it goes through the point negative 5, 3. Okay. And we're also given a slope. Okay, because it has to be parallel to this one. So this guy's slope is negative 1. So our slope is also going to be negative 1. They have to have the same slope. Okay. So the slope of the line y equals negative x minus 7 is negative 1. The equation of the line parallel to y equals negative 7 minus x will have a slope of negative 1 also. Okay, so find the equation of the line using point slope form because that's what we were given. We were given a point and a slope. The slope just came a little bit disguised. So we do y minus y1 equals the slope times x minus x1. That's point slope form. So then we do some substitution here. So negative 1 times x minus negative 5. And then we do some simplifying. So that's negative x, and then in here that becomes plus 5, but then that subtract moves over, so it stays at negative 5. Okay, so I think what they wanted in here was to do, oh, no, I think we have to do this. So negative x minus 5, and then we add 3 to both sides to get it back into slope-intercept form. So adding 3 to negative 5 will make negative 2. All right, so slopes of perpendicular lines. So here are the 3 important concepts about this. Okay, so slopes of perpendicular lines. 2 non-vertical lines are perpendicular if the product of their slopes is negative 1. So if one of the slopes was 1/2 and the other slope was negative 2, they would multiply to negative 1. Then these are perpendicular slopes. Notice it says non-vertical, so it doesn't work for vertical lines. Okay. So if the slopes of 2 lines have a product of negative 1, then they are perpendicular. So if these slopes multiply to negative 1, we get perpendicular. And any horizontal line and non-vertical lines are perpendicular. So any horizontal line and a vertical line are perpendicular. So if you take any horizontal and any vertical, they're automatically perpendicular. Okay. So write true or false for each of these bullets. The second bullet in the take note is the contrapositive of the first bullet. This is false. Contrapositive is to flip the first one around and negate both parts, but it doesn't do any negation at all. Okay. And then in number 20, the product of the slopes of any horizontal and vertical line is negative 1. This is also false. Remember, the vertical line is going to have an undefined slope, so we can't find the product of it at all. Okay. All right. Problem number 3, checking for perpendicular lines. So this time we have L3 goes through these 2 points, and L4 goes through those 2 points. And we want to know if they're perpendicular. So the first thing we're going to do is find their slopes, and then we'll multiply them together to see if they make negative 1. So the slope for L3, or we're finding slope of line 3, is going to be negative 1 minus 7 over top of 3 minus 2. So that's negative 8 over 1, which is negative 8. And the slope of L4 is going to be 7 minus 6 over top of 8 minus negative 2. So that's an 8 and that's a 6 there. So that's 1 over top of 10. It's not looking like they're going to multiply to -1 to me. So here we're going to get -8 times 1/10, and that's going to equal -8/10, which is definitely not -1. So underline the correct words to complete the sentence. L3 and L4 are not perpendicular because the product of their slopes does not equal -1. Only if you multiply their slopes together and you get -1 are they going to be perpendicular. All right, writing equations of perpendicular lines. So write an equation of a line that's perpendicular to this one and contains the point -3, 7. All right, so the nice thing about this is we know this guy's slope, okay, and we know the point it's supposed to go through. So this current slope is -3, and we know that the point we want our line to go through is -3, 7. So this is going to lead us to point slope form for our answer really easily. So I can identify the slope of M1 of the given line. Y equals -3x minus 5 is in, I should say, slope intercept form. Oops. Slope intercept form. So M1 is -3. Okay. And then I know that the slope of M2 of the reciprocal perpendicular is going to be the negative reciprocal. And that's how we get them to multiply to -1. So if this one's -3, then the negative reciprocal is going to be 1 over 3, and then put a negative back. Well, change the negative to a positive. So it would be -1 over 3, and then change it to positive. So M2 is going to be 1/3, and that's because -3 times 1/3 makes -1. So the perpendicular lines always have slopes that are negative reciprocals of each other. Okay, so I can use M2, which is now 1/3, and my point to write my line in point slope form. So I would write y minus 7 equals 1/3 x plus 3. Remember, it's minus -3, but we'll just go ahead and write it as plus 3. And now I've got it in point slope form, and it didn't tell me what form to write it in, so this is the easiest form to use, given the information that we had. Okay. All right, so we got a quick lesson check. So as always, pause the video, come back and check it afterwards. All right, welcome back. So your classmate tries to find the equation of a line that is parallel to this one and contains that point. What is your classmate's error? So they said the slope of the given line was 3, so this is correct. But the slope of the parallel line, not so much. Should be the same, so it should have been +3. So parallel lines have the same slopes. Now show a correct solution in the box below. So let's do the correct solution. It's going to be y minus 2 equals the same slope, and then x plus 4. Now this is it in point slope form. Just for fun, we'll go ahead and make it into point slope intercept form. So 3x plus 12, and then move the 2 over, so 3x plus 14. Both of these answers would be correct. They're the equivalent lines, they're just written differently. Okay? So check off the vocabulary words that you understand. Hopefully you still remember slope. Okay, that's the steepness of a line, a number that stands for the steepness of a line. Reciprocal is to flip a number upside down to switch the numerator to the denominator. Parallel, remember this means that they'll have the same slope. Okay, and perpendicular, we're going to have slopes of opposite reciprocals. Okay, all right, like I said last time, if your understanding is not in here, because this is just a repeat of some Algebra 1 lessons, then you really want to make sure you pay close attention in class next time, ask for a lot of help, or afterwards, if you're still struggling, come and see me after school so that we can get caught up or an advisory. Okay, I'll see you in class next time.